Welcome to DocLands Film Festival. We're so happy to see you here for the screening of Going to Mars, the NIKKI Giovanni Project. And as the senior programmer here, I do not have favorites. We have a wonderful slate of films, but this is an extraordinary project, both the direction and the subject. So you're in for a treat. Just a few quick announcements. We want to thank all of the sponsors, donors, and supporters of DocLands. We could not do it without you. So thank you for being here. The film is eligible for our Audience Award. You should have received a ballot on your way in. Please do tear off the number that corresponds with your experience of the film. It means so much to all the filmmakers. And if you didn't get a ballot, they have them for you outside the theater when you leave. So please turn off your devices. Anything that might make noise during the screening. The sound is incredible on this film. And I'm glad to see a lot of you in the center because they have really worked hard on the soundtrack. And we are so honored to have the directors of the film here for a Q&A after the screening. Joe Brewster, Michèle Stephenson, coming straight off a win at the 2023 Sundance Film Festival. They were awarded the Sundance Grand Jury Prize for this film. And I'd like to welcome them, and then they'll come back after.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming, and thank you to DocLands for the selection, for having us here, and for screening the film. And we do have Bay Area collaborators on the film who are our composers and musical performers, Samora Pinderhughes and his sister Elena Pinderhughes, and their parents are here. Supporting, so nice to be connected to the area.
You forgot the other collaborator, me.
Oh, you're from here?
I went to college here.
Okay.
And so they only give us 2 seconds to speak. So let me say that I was born in Los Angeles. I went to Stanford. I know you're Berkeley people, and we were mortal enemies. But let me just say this. We want you to listen to the film because culturally we feel like we put ourselves into the film. So this is a Afro-Atlantic cultural experience with sound and music. So you can laugh, you can cry, but listen.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome back to the stage Michèle Stephenson and Joe Brewster, directors. We do have a mic, I believe, for questions. And if we could just wait till the mic gets to you so everybody can hear, that would be great. Raise hands. And I can start. Well, if there's any questions, just raise your hand and she can. I know this was a 7-year journey making this film, and it's an amazing journey that you took us on. Thank you so much. I'm just curious because, you know, she's such a renowned poet, such a public figure, and you did not do a traditional biography starting from the beginning, going to the end. It's just this amazing tapestry of her life and so many other elements that you bring in. Was that something that you knew from the beginning 7 years ago, or did that come out of the material as you went through the process of making the film? Thank you.
No, because we often disagree. So I want to see what you're going to say so I can...
Counter?
Yeah.
That was always our intention. Our intention was always sort of to honor her voice. We sort of as an anti-biopic. It was about it all being, so some of the parameters we set out was that it would be all in her voice, no interviews talking about her. and that we were going to be on these different planes of sort of reality and storytelling that were a combination of our verite work with her over the last 7 years. She allowed us to follow her, so there were intimate moments that really brought us to the current day sort of reality of her lived experience. And then there were the poetry and her performances, and then her interviews, her archival interviews, her work with James Baldwin, all around that. We really wanted to give the space for that. And so those parameters we had from the very beginning. The final structure took a little while, but yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, that's what I was going to say. but I'm also going to say that we've been trying not to compromise. So we've compromised with craft, with the linearity of films, with the use of archival, with sound, and we said, fuck it, this is our film. And that's why it took a little bit longer. And I was watching the film and seeing all of the scenes, because we do a lot of test screenings with, cousins, neighbors, gardeners. And they said, take this scene out, take this scene out, take this scene out. We put them all back.
We also wanted to play with archival sound and dialogue and have them be in conversation with each other. So it took some time. We actually cut in stanzas. Mm-hmm. So to sort of also honor sort of the poetry itself. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Okay.
Hi.
It's a very loving portrait of Nikki Giovanni, and I wonder, are there any parameters that were drawn in terms of how much you could say about her or how critical you could be of her and her evolution?
That's sort of she laid no parameters around what we could say, but there's certain things that she was not going to talk to us about. So some of which were who's Thomas's father. That was kind of in the release, like, you're not going to ask anything about who he is. And for us, it didn't really matter in some ways. It was more about her choices in that period and how she chose to live her life. Yeah, that was basically it. So, but we could do whatever we want with what we had and what we could find. That was total sort of whatever we could do, yeah.
It is loving, but it's not that loving. And I'm thinking, I was pointing out in my brain things that were not flattering. And, but I think the most important thing is that it wasn't loving of Nikki, it was loving of my mom and what Black women have done for me in my lifetime. It's about stopping the erasure and understanding that there is trauma, but there was also this beautiful experience that I wanted to describe. She helped me find that story. That's us. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's really about. And it's a sonnet to Mom. How about that?
Wow. Another question?
That was a beautiful film. Thank you for making it. I was wondering, in the moment when she was interviewed or asked the question about the assassination of Dr. King, she said that she doesn't remember her feelings around it. And I was wondering, was that her memory issue that she had talked about earlier in the film on the phone call? Or was that so painful for her and she didn't believe people deserved an answer from her for that, especially white people?
Well, that was mostly a Black audience. I would say it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, yeah.
And that she couldn't answer that question. I mean, this is a lot about Gus. And we showed you that early on. It was pretty traumatic. And she found a way to cope and to heal and to love, but she had to forget a lot of stuff to do that. Now, I'm not recommending that way of coping, but it's her way, and it's like a comedian who uses comedy, and we are blessed with it, but it's not, it doesn't hold them through the sad times. So, yes, that was left intentionally there, so you can see.
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of both, but also, I mean, it's sort of connected to the previous question in terms of she puts it all out there in her poetry, and she puts it all out there in her performances. And she says, that's what I'm giving to you, right? And this is how I want you to respond, or this is how, she says about sharing. So the direct communication about thinking about certain things are both memory, but also unintentional decision not to go back on certain things that are too painful. So, but it is, the pain is in the poetry. I mean, her opinion, her worldview, all of that is in the poetry, and that's what we honored, which is why, we have sort of this response, the question, but then the response is the poem that she wrote that was immediately, not long after his assassination. She wrote it.
Beautiful. There's...
What is your relationship to Nikki Giovanni, and how did you get that access? Was it to her?
Well, we both have sort of a love of her work. Joe, a bit earlier than me. I was in college, and you can speak to listening to her on the radio in terms of my exposure, but we didn't know her. And we cold called Ginny, her spouse, and they said, she said, come on down and meet. And Nikki was like, yeah, come on. I think we had one very quick sort of Zoom conversation about what we were interested in. And I came over for the weekend, and they wine and dined me, and we partied, and a lot of champagne. And we just got along, and she was like, okay, come on back. And so that's how it started, because she says she never says no to anything, but she does say no to quite a bit once you get to know her. So the access was amazing in terms of being able to spend the time, stay there. But again, it's like there are clear boundaries, and you work around it with other material to get to some of the core.
So it was enticing, but it wasn't real, because that first interview that I had with her, when she says, I'm not answering that, I'm sitting there thinking, oh shit, this is on. And it took us a while to figure out how to get around that. And that's when we went into a deeper dive into the poetry. Everything you need to know about her is in a poem.
I'm almost at a loss for words. This was perhaps the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. This is me.
Oh, sorry, I'm in the light.
Raise your hand.
Oh, okay.
I'm deeply, deeply, I can't tell you how deeply I'm moved by this movie. Touched something really, really deep. I loved the beginnings, the times when you had the young Nikki were stunning. And her honesty and her directness, and the way she could be stopped. She just stopped when something struck her. She just stopped, and it was like almost seeing her gulp and take something in. And I was struck by I'm not black. I don't have a black history, but just how she deals with her history. And at one point where she's with an audience, and I noticed there were a lot of white people in the audience. And she said something about the black memory is of being slaves, but you white people were the slave owners. And it was like, I don't know how they took that, because, it just touched something very deep. I could ramble.
Is that the question?
Thank you.
No, I'm going to answer. I'm going to comment on that.
Good.
Because you said you don't have a black history. You have black history. And all you have to do is turn on the news, to look at the history books. But culturally, and that's our next film, the music, the musical culture is part of America. It's a very dominant part of American culture. And so what we do, we like to call ourselves archivists. Our son is an archivist because he looks at the history and looks at the history, Black history, and that's been disappeared and not understood. And so I'm helping you to understand wherever you're from, we've been there. And we might have come through the TV waves, the radio waves, but the musical culture of Africa is a healing culture. And so look for it. Like I said, listen to the music. What did you think about Samora Pinderhugh's score?
Woo!
I just want to compliment the level of love that you guys put into that film. It was very, very, it's like such an exquisite treatment of this woman's existence, you know? So huge compliment to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We should get one more question. That was...
Yeah. Oh, she has the mic. Yeah, go ahead.
I was not aware of her before, and so I thank you for the gift of showing who she was and her poetry. But I personally was the most touched by the way that you shared the Black culture and the Black history and the joy and the passion and the courage and just so much that I'm just very touched by the window that you gave us in this film, we who don't know about that. It was really very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to thank you for coming.
Well,
And
maybe we can get one question.
Does someone have a question? Okay.
I was wondering about, you talk about the sound, but then also the footage. If you were talking about a stanza, and it seems like every stanza also have this imagery that you brought in with the ocean or with the animation that you created, and if you could talk a little bit about that. How you did it, how you decided what to...
that's a big question. Now, let me say this. You're better at talking fast.
And we can continue the conversation in the lobby.
Yeah.
It was done in layers.
Yeah.
And this is a film that was blessed by time. And when you have time, you can think about it. You can think about motif. You can think about parallels. And we decided not to pull any punches. And because what happens is this film is for life, and we would regret it every time we saw it. So we went overboard, we brought it back, we went overboard, we brought it back, and this is where it lives now. We've had some suggestions. We can go on one more time before it's released in the fall.
Yeah. All right. Hopefully, yeah. Please let your friends know when the release. You can't talk about the release.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. One more then.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
we
first
go?
off, I was really struck by the love of the women for the women. Nikki for Kai, shots of Gwendolyn Brooks, I think Sonia Sanchez and a few. You said that everything about Nikki you already know from a poem. What did you learn from Nikki from being able to spend 7 years with her that you maybe didn't know as you were going in and maybe didn't make its way into the film?
Oh, that's an interesting one. For me, people change and they evolve. And I think I was a little bit surprised that I wouldn't say conservative, but less progressive that she is now, which is sort of, for me, a better embracing of the complicated nature of what it is to be human, right? And her evolution and where that. So that's what stood out for me in terms of my interactions with her. Because I disagreed with a lot of stuff that was being discussed, but I didn't really. So it was, but I learned to be quiet in front of my elder. Yeah.
Well, I learned the same, but I learned a deeper respect for a positive spin on history. I've learned that the way the erasure occurs is that we're dealing with too much trauma. And the scene where she says, I pay for my son's car, and I can do what the fuck I want. She begins that by talking about even in the worst times, we learn how to love. And that's what I have to remember when I deal with anyone. Peace.
Yes. Thank you.